We had just left a police station in Al Alamia. The date was October 27, 2003. As we drove out of the city, we heard a loud explosion. That explosion was so strong that we felt the ground vibrate underneath our Humvees as we were driving out of the city. We turned back to see smoke coming up from the area we were just in. Not long before that explosion, we had heard one of our platoons in our company check into that location. We turned around and drove back as fast as we could. We didn't know at that moment if any of them would make it. Thankfully, no U.S. soldiers died. However, many were severely injured. I was saddened by the loss of our Iraqi friends. For the first few months we were in Iraq was spent building this police station. We hired the Iraqi police, we trained them, and along the way we gained many friends. Around this Iraqi police station there were many businesses and homes that were destroyed as well. I was saddened as I looked out and I saw the fathers and the mothers and the children digging through the rubble only to find their loved ones deceased. Hearing those screams will haunt me for the rest of my life. I'd never seen so much death before. Much of my time in Iraq was spent dealing with death. Death of my friends, the enemy, translators, and even our own. Moments like that have a way of changing your life forever. After coming home from Iraq, I struggled with what I had seen, what I had done, what I had gone through. I struggled with PTSD to the point where I attempted to commit suicide multiple times. It wasn't until I realized that what I was struggling with wasn't a disorder, but instead I was struggling with PTSD, post-traumatic stress injury. That little change of thought, that helped me able to realize that I had hope, that I could fix, I could heal from what I had gone through. After that, God gave me victory through post-traumatic stress. After that, I began to look around and see my fellow veterans and what they were going through. It gave me a burden to help them as well.
Clayton Mark Randall's earthly journey began October 28, 1982, in Houston, Texas. As a little boy, he would have weapons with him most of the time. And if a villain would just dare come into his imagination, he would take those weapons out, and in just a few minutes he'd have them annihilated. When he was a Cavalry Scout in the United States Army, he had the best training, the best weapons, the best logistical support that the country could offer. And that made him very successful in engaging in defeating the Iraqi forces and any civilian combatants that they came across. But when he got home, as a combat veteran, he had a different kind of war to fight. This was a very difficult war because now his enemy was invisible and very powerful. The weapons that he had available to him was not very effective. It was basically useless. And their logistical support that he was given was almost non-existent. So eventually, his enemy, which is known as post-traumatic stress disorder, it wore him down and it delivered a fatal blow on September 3rd of 2017 at the age of 34 when he died from a drug overdose.
So could you tell me a little bit about this picture? Who is that?
This is my son, Clayton Randall, and he was a Cavalry Scout, did 2 tours in Iraq. He left a squared away, all-American young man, but he did not come home that way. And the person that came home to me was almost unrecognizable. And we spent about 10 years on a very long, hard journey. until his journey ended.
And how did that end?
He had untreated PTSD and drug addiction, and it ended in a drug overdose.
I'm sorry. Could you tell me a little bit about Clayton before he went into the military?
Now, before he went in, he had the great dry sense of humor. And sometimes you had to really watch him to tell if he was kidding or not. But he would love to get people on that. He was very compassionate. He had a huge heart. But I felt like after whatever happened to him in July of 2003, and he felt like God deserted him. But 10 days before he died, we were sitting in the car and he said, "Mom," he said, "when that man from Life Church put his arm on me, he said something powerful happened inside of me. Now that wounded spirit was healed, but his emotions and his mind wasn't." And so he got stressed and he went back to the drugs, and his body wasn't used to it. And I walked in on a Sunday morning to bring him his breakfast and his medicine and to check on him, and I found him dead.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. That was rough.
I know you mentioned earlier that your son wrote 2 letters. Mm-hmm. Would you think you could read those? Mm-hmm. I'll take this.
But this would have been written within a year of him coming home. He said, "Nightmares are what come to me at night. Maybe it's the horrors of war, or maybe my mind is just stuck in a scary place. Whatever has brought this curse on me isn't letting go. The things I see are haunting, unspeakable. My body jerks and turns in all directions. I wake up scared to death and covered in sweat. I don't know if the dreams will ever stop or if I'll ever find peace. I can only scream in the darkness and hope someone hears my voice." And that's one of the main things about your program. There are so many veterans that are screaming for help. Some of them have given up. A lot of families have given up on them. But they're not throwaways. And this shows just the darkness, the inner pain that he had, the guilt that he did not know what to do with. So I thought I left the darkest part of my soul in the desert, my worst actions buried in the sand, that I got away clean and the monster was gone. I was fooled. There's a price to be paid. Back home now, things are different. I've turned most of my hatred into self-destructive drug abuse. I wanted to start over. It's too late. Misery follows me. Physical wounds heal, but I have been spiritually killed. I have no tears to cry. Death has been welcomed so many times, but Satan doesn't let you off his hook that easy. And if someone would have just known how to have reached him at this point, I think his whole life would have been totally different. But I do know there's many of them out there, and they need help. And I appreciate what you're doing.
And I thank you for being willing to talk to us about Clayton and telling us his story.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello, my name is Paul Phelps. I started a nonprofit in 2015 by the name of M.A.S.H. M.A.S.H stands for Mobile Assistance for Servicemen and Women at Home. In the beginning, our thought was to go where the veterans are and hold retreats and conferences. But as time went on, we began to see a need also for first responders. In 2017, after the Las Vegas shooting, we immediately went down there and worked with the first responders as well as the victims. as we worked with them, we began to realize that there's a large burden, or a huge need anyways, for the help that first responders have. And as you turn on the TV, I'm sure you'll see almost every week there's another shooting, some crisis, police officers being attacked. They need our help. And when we began, we saw a need. But now, as we see, the need is far greater than we realized.
"21 veterans commit suicide every day. Every month, more than 1,000 veterans attempt to take their own lives. Veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan are 75% more likely to die in a car accident than those that are not veterans. 80% of first responders will be involved in a traumatic event sometime in their career. First responders are more likely to take their own life than to die in the line of duty. About 19% of police officers have PTSD. Firefighters are 3 times as likely to commit suicide than die in the line of duty. The effect of post-traumatic stress injuries on the family has been devastating. It leaves families shattered and often permanently broken. Children are 4,000 times more likely to commit suicide if their parents commit suicide. If we wish to help these children, we must help these veterans and first responders see that there is hope before it is too late. M.A.S.H's theme verse is Psalm 46:1. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble.